Hello, everybody, and welcome to 911 Wine, the podcast that Napa Valley didn't know it needed. I'm Hillary.
And I'm Chris. And if you're still listening to these, it means your iPhone has continued to automatically download these episodes, and for that, we apologize.
I don't think we should be apologizing. I think we should be thanking them and asking them to rate 5 stars.
You can rate these?
Oh, you can comment these.
Oh, boy.
So just a reminder, we are a comedy and crime podcast.
With some great wine and some really cool local people.
So enjoy. Hello, Chris.
Hi, Hillary.
Are you excited to be here?
Am I ever excited to be at these?
Well, you showed up. So, step one.
Well, let's start.
Actually, I showed up to you.
It's true. We have made it pretty big now. This is episode 17. We're really starting to get some big names on. Mm-hmm. And we have a really big name.
We do.
At least for St. Helena and Napa Valley.
Exactly.
And maybe even for LA, too.
Do you know some fun facts about him?
Let's hear it.
He produced an Emmy-nominated documentary.
This is true.
And he's mostly known in the Valley from behind the camera.
Mm-hmm.
But today we have him on because now he's making wine.
He's like a vintner and a filmmaker.
You have a lot of talents.
I'm a multi-hyphenate.
You and Chris are like friends.
That's pretty cool. Well, should we welcome Matt Morris?
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Matt.
Thank you.
How did you get suckered into this?
I got suckered into this because I was just thinking how I knew you. I knew about you through Zach, who was a waiter at Rustic Canyon in LA.
Zach who?
I
feel bad. Sorry. Zach, if you're listening, I'm sorry. So go ahead.
He grew up in Napa, and
You guys had some memories at 5th grade camp together.
Probably. And Rustic Canyon was the first restaurant in LA to carry my wine. Oh. And he would talk to me about his buddy at Jacob Franklin.
Oh, of course. Okay.
And then you, mm-hmm. and I was like, oh, cool. And then it's funny, he moved back, so he's going to be at Goose and Gander.
Oh my God. Our favorite spot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remembered hearing your name from him a couple of years ago, and then you helped me out during the fire. I remember what was funny was you were posting stuff, and so people would send me. I was evacuated. I was 100% sure my place had burned.
I was too, almost.
Yeah. Like every day I would go up, to where the roadblocks were, and I would look, and I would use Google Earth, and I would be like, yeah, that's my house burning. Like that's where it is. Yep. And I snuck in because I think it was the day that the fire moved to Meadowood, mm-hmm. and so everyone had kind of left the roadblocks. And so I drove north on 29, and there wasn't the roadblock kind of at the end of downtown. I kept mm-hmm. going. And then I went to Bale Lane, and there was no one at Bale Lane. So I hook over there, and then I get to the trail. I just figured, I'm going to go until I get stopped.
Yeah, perfect.
I get to the trail. No one's at the trail. So then I go down to Crystal Springs, and no one's at Crystal Springs, and I start going, and the first 2 houses I see are burned to the ground. I'm like, okay, all right, that's fine.
Preparing.
I know it. And then I got around the corner and I saw my roof, and I just started crying. For 2 days you're like, I get it. Yeah. It's gone. I'm fine.
And then to see it.
And so there was a fire engine in my backyard. Mm-hmm. There were still fires going in front of my house. I knew I really was not supposed to be there. And so I ran out of my car. I put out a fire with my feet. And then I ran back in and I left. And I was staying at my friend Tessa's house just right down the road.
Yeah.
And I had not been sleeping for 2 days. I had been checking on people's properties, the Bergmans and mm-hmm. other stuff, doing the rounds. And after I knew my house was fine, I was like, I'm going to get hammered tonight. I'm just going to allow I'm going to go back to this smoky, dark house with no power and drink warm rosé until I pass out, right? And so I sent you a message on Instagram, hammered from the couch, right? And I was like, hey, I live on Crystal Springs, thanks for doing what you're doing. And you sent me a message back and you were like, do you want to get in your place? And when I left, it was the you get out of there as quickly as possible version. I grabbed 3 things and I left. And so there was a bunch of stuff in there. And again, it's midnight. I'm hammered. And I'm just like, yeah, I would love to get my place. And you're like, all right, meet me on Deer Park at 5 a.m. I'm like, come on.
That's it. That's how we became friends.
That's how we became friends.
And I had a half hour. I was like, we can do it. It's 5 in the morning. So, yeah.
I'm sure those are the drunk DMs that you really normally get.
People slide down.
Yeah. You're a hero.
Unfortunately.
And you're like, why is it got to be Matt?
Why is he the one drunk on rosé?
Yeah.
Oh, not the DMs I look forward to. But it was okay. It worked out because you gave me a really awesome bottle of... It was Heritage Blend?
It was
the fire. The fire.
Yeah, the Ode to Bernardo. Yeah. It was the first year that we did a blend.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
And that's how I learned about Matt Morris Wines.
Yeah.
And how I suckered you into this.
I thought he was DMing us to get in.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm just desperate for attention. I've got to get my follower count up. I'm going after that blue check until I'm verified.
It's going to be public figure, and you're going to get the 911 bump.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard about it. 911 bump. You're going to get at least 2 more follows.
At least.
In the next 3 months.
And it'll be Hillary and I.
Solid too.
But seriously, thanks for coming on. Do you like the St. Helena Police Log? Have you spent some time reading it?
I love it. That was one of those things that I remember when I first started visiting St. Helena. I would stay with Herb and Jennifer Lamb on Hell Mountain. And that was the thing that Jennifer told me about early on. Model bakery English muffins. Mm-hmm. You get the insider tips.
Yeah.
And she was like, you should read the police log. Because it's hilarious, because nothing happens here. And so people are forced to make a huge deal out of absolutely nothing. And it's very quaint and charming. So I'm all about the police log.
Favorite part about the police log?
Favorite
or favorite entry.
Or not entry, what's fun about it?
What's fun about it to
You're
me...
asking the hard questions, Chris. Wow.
What's fun about it to me, I was telling you this earlier, is how anticlimactic all of it is. Because the first sentence always sounds like something's going down. Someone reports their car was stolen, and then it's update, it was in their driveway. Or someone found a dead person and they were like, oh, they were taking a nap. Someone stole my dog and then it was just upstairs. It always starts with something super intense. And so speaking of that, I saw Matteo Abreu today, who I know was on here, and he was giving me some olive oil. I contributed some olives from my place to this community oil that he makes. And he told me that he made the police log with it.
Recently, because he was picking olives.
And he said it was exactly, the story was this woman called the police on him because he was picking olives from the tree, and she had just forgotten that she gave him permission to do it. And so same thing. It's like, oh right, yeah, I let you do this.
These are the things you only get in a small town like St. Helena.
I hope it doesn't affect my ability to vote if I'm on the police log.
I've definitely been on it.
Get a job.
And I have a job.
Okay.
So I've got 2. So we're set there.
Extra
Perfect.
points. Man.
I've been on it more than once.
Oh, okay.
So if you had to pick how you're defined, would you define yourself as a vintner, a filmmaker, or just a purveyor of the police log? What would your...
trendsetter, influencer. Let's see.
Rogue advocate.
Probably, yeah. Like regular consumer of Charter Oak.
Do they call those people Charter Okies?
I don't know. Like they assume, everyone assumes that I live there, that I'm like the Phantom of the Opera at Charter Oak. That like at the end of the night, I just descend down the stairs into the St. George room and go to sleep. You know, or that I'm sleeping by the fire outside, keeping myself warm with Black Apple Manhattan.
But you have a home. We've learned.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I mean, I like creative pursuits. I mean, that's the only thing that wraps up everything. What form that takes doesn't seem to really matter to me that much. I just like, I mean, the same as you. You like playing with all the toys in the sandbox, right? Yeah. And so that's the thing.
Yeah.
Gotta keep it.
Why not?
Gotta keep it spicy.
I like that.
Absolutely.
That's a good description for you.
That's a great description, and it keeps me where I am at about 5 years old with all the toys.
Right. Yeah. And that was kind of part of the thing where you know, taking photos of people making wine for a couple of years. I'm like, but I live in Napa, and it's like I'm watching, like I'm a kid watching my friend play my Game Boy. You know what I mean? It's that thing where you're like, well, I want to play.
Do this.
You know, I want to do this. This looks fun.
Because you started still photography. That's how you got your start.
So I was making documentary shorts out of college, and I was doing the film festival circuit with those, and then I'd been interested in wine kind of like intensely at the end of college and right after, and then I just was spending too much money on wine. And I thought, this is dumb. This is going to have nothing to do with my life ever. So I just stopped buying wine. But then I started doing the sound mixing on my shorts over at Skywalker Sound in Marin. And since I had no money, I asked Herb and Jennifer if I could stay with them because I used to buy their wine. I used to buy the E2 Cabernet. Because, you know, I'm doing my research and I'm like, oh my God, Colgan's an amazing wine, but it's $300 and some. And then, but they make a Herb Lamb vineyard, and Herb Lamb makes an estate cab for $150, but then they have this E2 that's $40. Perfect. You know? So, like, I'm sipping my $40 wine, like, convincing myself I'm drinking Colgan. And so I stayed with her and Jennifer and would just drive out to Skywalker and do sound mixing and then come back. And then in 2010... I just happened to be here during harvest. Okay. So Jennifer knocks on the door at 6 a.m. She's like, come on, like help us pick. So I helped pick fruit, went to the winery, sorted. I was wearing a white button-up shirt and like white Stan Smiths. And so it was very apparent that this was my first rodeo, you know? And I just fell in love with it. Like I remember saying, you drive up Highway 29 and you're convinced that you left a model like Blueberry Danish in your car. You're like, what is this smell? Like everything just permeates. And so I had my camera on me at the time and I did a little video and some photos for Herb and Jennifer just for fun. And then one of their neighbors asked if I could come back the next year and do something like that.
Cool.
And I was kind of on that verge of, I wanted to move to LA, but I had this kind of saying, don't move to LA until LA wants you to move to LA. Because otherwise it's that revolving door. You know, people come in, it drains you of all your money and then you get spit back out. And here I just sort of had this realization, oh, I know this. I know these names. Like I've paid attention to wine. I get this. And that, you know, there are 600 to 1,000 bonded wineries in Napa, and like how many photographers and directors are there? So I started out thinking I was just going to do video, but then the camera I used for video was the same for photos. It was just a hobby, but someone asked me to take photos, and I did, and I realized, oh, okay, you know, it's a lot easier because I'm not having to try to find crew, which is really hard up here. You know, you're going to find someone from San Francisco maybe, and then are they going to show up that day? You know, how good are they going to be? And photos is just me, you know, out in a vineyard. And so I kind of made a concerted effort to shift to that in maybe 2014 or 15.
Cool.
And then have been doing that ever since.
Well, your
worked
photos
out.
are
Yeah.
amazing, man. I mean, they're really cool. I think you had one of like during the fires, like a helicopter coming you down,
Yeah.
dipping water while
Yeah.
people were picking right behind them. Mm-hmm. That was amazing.
And I took 4 photos during that whole thing.
Wow.
And it was funny. I just got so lucky.
Yeah.
So during the 17 fire, I was out of town, and then I was just shuttling back and forth between San Francisco, getting people like masks when N95s were hard to get, coming back up, and just photos were kind of the last thing on my mind. And then a couple of days in, when the helicopters showed up, I was driving home. I had my camera in my car. And I saw they were going down there, dipping at one of the irrigation ponds, kind of by Tokelon. So I just turned my car in, and I just kind of follow where the helicopter's going. And then I turn around a corner. They're pickers harvesting, and so the tractor's down to the, and then a helicopter goes to dip in the pond directly behind them. I pull my camera out, the picker sees me and then flashes me thumbs up. And I was just like, okay, like,
Awesome.
that's my photo.
That was
We're
phenomenal.
gonna go home now.
That was an amazing shot. I mean, that was like, to me, that was
Because
2017
it
now, but
represented
so much of what is.
Yes,
It was
and
like
that, and
a
that
picture
spirit
in that
too of
moment.
the time where
Yeah.
we're the resiliency and like we're picking anyways, and
Yeah.
we're gonna
Yeah.
keep going. Yeah, it was nice.
But that's Napa Valley, like every disaster.
Every disaster.
Yeah.
To include Monday, January 25th. This is one of my favorite ones. At 10:16, the door of a truck fell off and damaged a parked car on Pope Street. Just fell off.
And then how would it damage
I don't know.
another car?
How did it just fall off?
Maybe it was like cruising and they like opened it and it flew off. Wow.
They clamp it and move to Napa.
Well, there was a car stolen from Oak Avenue. It was last seen Tuesday afternoon with its keys inside of it.
There's your problem.
Is it really stolen? Oh, what logs are we doing? We
Oh,
didn't
God.
even. Come
Sorry.
on. Come on, Chris.
I've only been doing this 16 times before. Go ahead, Hillary.
So we are doing January 2021. So it's our first log of the new year.
Wow.
Very exciting. And then instead of an oldie, we have some like snippets of fun from that month too.
Snippets of fun. Okay. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, Matt, you got any good ones?
I like this. A stop sign at Adams and Stockton had been flipped in the wrong direction. An officer fixed it. Again, like, I'm so glad this is recorded.
Oh my god.
Oh, this one gets feisty.
Let's hear it.
So at 1:48 in the afternoon on a Friday, a driver was
On
concerned
which day? This is
on
important.
January 22nd.
There we go.
A driver was concerned about why a crossing guard at Crane/Grayson wasn't allowing through traffic to go ahead. He said the crossing guard yelled at him and told him to call the police. That is feisty.
That is spicy. Yeah. He chose violence that day.
Yeah, the crossing guard
Yeah.
did. Aren't the crossing guards normally teachers?
I don't know. They got a tough job.
I like this report of an ongoing problem with juveniles littering, breaking branches off trees, not wearing masks, and making sarcastic and disrespectful comments at Miley Park. I love that sarcasm is worth a 911 call.
And breaking of branches.
Says something about how about where we live. It's amazing. Are we ready for? Oh man, which one of these? This is good. How about?
Okay.
Have you heard of Nextdoor?
Yes.
Anybody heard of Nextdoor?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell our listeners what it is in
So,
case they
in
haven't?
case you don't know, I'm not a Nextdoor subscriber, fan, whatever, but someone sent me this. My mom. And
Yes, everyone's mom is on Nextdoor.
everyone, I love it. I think my
So-
mom likes it for the comedic value, but
It's kind of like a place where you can put like, hey, I need recommendations on a great carpenter, or the power just went out. Does anyone know what's going on? Or
But it gets gossipy quick.
it gets gossipy and feisty. Those comments, all of a sudden, there's like 100 long of like people just like going at it, and then there's people in there just like laughing at the entertainment.
so here's one of the entertainments. This is closer to Napa, but it's worth it. It's titled Critter on Lahoma. There's a picture imagine of a rat-looking
Furry
critter in the green grass, and someone took this picture, posted it, and said, "This critter is just to the side of the sidewalk on Lahoma. What is that? A rat? It's not dead, but it doesn't look particularly well either. My dog came within a foot of it. Update. It's still there and dying several hours later. Anyone know who to call? I can't find a number for Just Animal Control. It's right in front of 749 Lahoma. Update. Called Animal Control. Someone will come to check it out." Thank you.
So I do remember this post in the comments. Some people were like, why don't you just leave it and a coyote or snake or something is going to come get it eventually. We live in Napa Valley. There's critters wandering.
It is a critter.
Some people, did you call the vet office? Some people, call animal control. There were a lot of opinions on this furry little friend.
Well, I hope he.
Do you think they had a funeral?
I hope so. It's a great picture of it. Maybe Matt Morris took that picture.
Yeah, he could have did.
So
is that what you do? You stand next door, and then when there's a good story, you run out and photograph it?
Yep.
So speaking of photos, that was my really terrible.
What a segue! What a segue!
Segue into your wine here.
Speaking of critters that are dying, love this wine. It smells interesting.
Oh, I can't.
With that transition, why don't you tell us about this great wine I'm drinking?
Yeah.
And the pictures that you've taken that are on the label.
True. Okay. Going back when I was really nerdy about wine, I obviously was interested in filmmaking, and I used to go on Wine Bid to find old bottles of wine. And I found a bottle of wine that Francis Ford Coppola made in 1982 as a Christmas gift for friends and family. And it had the label says Merry Christmas 1982. It has all the family members' names on it. And I had just started to, Roman CQ had just come out, Lost in Translation had just come out. I was like, oh, this is cool. This is when they were kids. They didn't know they were going to be filmmakers. And it was a Charbonneau, and I'd never heard of that grape. I picked it up for $15. I drank it Christmas 2006, and it was a 1980 vintage, and it was great. It was 26 years old, but still a bunch of fruit there and everything. It wasn't that thing. I always joke that everyone makes excuses for old wine. They're like, it's hanging in there. It's got some fruit left, But this one, it was no excuses. It was great. So I asked my retailer in North Carolina, can you get me more Charbonneau? So he knew of one place, Robert Foley had Charbonneau. And he sent me Foley's price list, and it's Foley Claret $115, Foley Merlot 65, Foley Charbonneau $20. And I'm like, perfect, I love it. So then fast forward to 10 years later, I'm living here. I'm doing photos for Realm Cellars, and Benoit, the winemaker, and I were talking about wines that got us into wine. I mentioned Charbonneau. He had never heard of it. So we did a little tasting at the winery, and we got in this kind of philosophical discussion about, Charbonneau was a $35 to $40 wine. But when we asked people, the winemakers and the vineyard managers, do you do X, Y, Z, for quality, it was always well, you can't because that's expensive, and this is what people pay for Charbonneau, and so no. And so all my clients have been really high-end cab people. And we just thought, what if you throw a blank check at an ignored variety? Is it going to make a big difference? Is it going to make any difference at all? And then he saw Peter Heitz's name on one of the bottles, and he knew Peter was a winemaker at Turnbull, sold fruit to Realm. He was like, let's go talk to Peter about Charbonneau. And so to put this in context, when I was in college, I emailed Inglenook about the Coppola bottle. My email went through 12 people before one person knew that had existed, but no one had seen one, right? And so Peter says, how do you know about Charbonneau? And I said, well, I told him about this Coppola bottle. And he goes, oh, no, I know that. And I said, well, how do you know that? And he said, well, that fruit came from my family's vineyard. my grandmother grew those
Whoa.
grapes.
Wow.
No way.
And it was because when Francis bought Inglenook, he
Uh-huh.
ripped out the Charbonneau to plant Cab.
Yep.
But they had a long-term lease, Inglenook did, with Peter's family that wasn't up yet. So they were still buying some extra fruit. It wasn't enough to do this big thing. And they were like, okay, let's just
Do a Christmas present.
do a Christmas present. So then that's when we decided to do it. And it was great. Like the growers were down to experiment, and Benoit just went full force at it. And we made it in the same manner you would make a $200 Cab.
Yeah.
And loved the results. Ended up adding another vineyard, Toffanelli, the next year. I started working with Françoise Pechon a couple of years later. And the labels, that was kind of a result of the first winemaker I ever met was Manfred Krankel at Sine Qua Non.
Yep.
I had gotten in touch with him because I loved his artwork and I loved his labels. And we kind of had a back and forth. And I met him when I was at a film festival in Ojai in 2009. But then you see like a lot of Sine Qua Non ripoffs, and it's just not the same, you know? And so that was something I thought about was, well, okay, if these other people are doing similar things, you know, funky names every year, changing the names, changing the labels, why doesn't it work? And it's because Manfred was doing Manfred, you know? And then
He's authentic to himself.
It's authentic to himself, and everyone else was trying to ape that. And so that's why it doesn't work. And so I was thinking, okay, what's authentic to me? And at the time, I loved kind of analog photography. So I had this old Polaroid camera from the 1970s that I would take photos with. And so that was the first label, was a Polaroid. And then I've kept it so the Polaroid changes every year, but it's a Polaroid. And then it's printed in a 1-to-1 scale of the size of the image that it comes from. And so each time we change it, and it usually has some meaning to me as to why I've put that Polaroid on that bottle. And then when we started doing Toffanelli, the first time I met Vince, he had an old 35 millimeter Leica in his truck. And so what's fun about this one is it's a contact sheet, which is, you know, how photographers would choose what photos to take prints of. But it's a contact sheet of a roll of film that I shoot the morning that we harvested the grapes that are in this bottle.
Cool.
And so what's nice about that is, you know, if you're in a restaurant somewhere and you've never been to Napa, you can actually see what it looked like in the vineyard that day that we picked the stuff that you drink there.
Yep.
So that's super fun. And again, like that's printed 1-to-1 scale of what a contact sheet is. And then the Heritage is a double exposure. This one is the only one that we're keeping the label the same every
That's
year,
cool.
just because it worked
Is
out
that
so
Vince?
well.
Is that Vince on there?
Yeah, this is Vince. And that was one that Françoise told me when we first printed it. She was like, you know, you're not changing that.
That's
right?
cool.
And I was like, yeah, we'll keep that.
That's a vibe, man.
So
and
the
you got
idea-
the cuttings in there and him. And
Yes.
Did you do that? Was that an intentional double exposure on film, or did you have
No,
to
this
layer
is
those?
this is digital. Yeah. So and that was because normally it would have been a film thing, but this wine literally came about in blending. So we had no intention of doing this blend until the month before we bottled. And so I looked through images that I had. I put something together, and I remember telling people, what do you think? Because you have no choice, because this is all we have time for. You know, like we have to get labels printed. Like this is what I got.
Cool.
And the idea with the double exposure is basically we are, you know, each wine has its kind of photographic identity. And with the Heritage, we were overlapping different vineyards, different varieties, and so the double exposure made sense.
That's
to
cool.
me that way.
So, and what's in the Heritage? I think we're drinking that right now. So.
Yeah, so the Heritage is Charbonneau. It's predominantly Charbonneau. It's like 80-some% Charbonneau. And then a little Petit Syrah, some Old Vine Petit from Françoise's front yard. And about a barrel of that. And then a little dose of Malbec is in there as well.
Cool.
I love it.
So cool. It tastes amazing. It smells great.
Well, that was a fun thing. It's like we were making this Charbonneau and kind of high-end Charbonneau, and I was always jealous of like Mindy Kearney and Michelle Ouellette who have Lorenzo Rosé, and like they have a wine that just show up anywhere,
Yeah.
you know, with a bottle of rosé. And I was like, I want a wine like that, that's just a fun wine. And what's interesting too is blending. It's so much fun because blending these other two, the goal is the expression of the site, right? So you feel like you're serving this other thing. What is Toffanelli? What is Shy Poke? And we want it to be the best version of that. And with this, the only guiding factor is what's delicious, And so it gets to be a lot of fun to just go, okay, what do you want to drink now? You get these wines, you put these two away, and then what do you just pop and pour? So it's been super fun.
And you give a license to experiment with that.
Yeah. So then that was the idea is if we wanted to try out, see how like Zinfandel plays with it, cool. Like we've got a playground.
So the heritage picture, the label stays the same, the blends change, and then each of the Toffanelli and the Shy Poke change photos every year.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Nice.
Well,
Cool.
speaking of a party.
Let's hear it.
Report of a lounge party occurring every weekend on Brown Street.
Where's that?
Was my question too. Where is Brown
Every
Street?
weekend. Oh, do you want to go?
It's every weekend. We have yet to be invited, which I think is a little rude.
Well,
speaking of parties, a woman reported being threatened by a UPS driver. We had discussed there's like a party UPS driver in St. Helena.
there is.
It's basically a mobile club. It's like a rave. It's like a brown box rave that happens. And today I was at station, and I swear to God, it happens every time where I hear this noise, and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah,
And
just
so,
turn it up.
I just hear Ace of Base blasting, and then I turn around, and sure enough, it's the UPS driver. And I'm surprised, like, St. Helena is such a sleepy town that this guy, like, no one has called.
No one's complained.
There are
Maybe they have.
a lot of well-connected rich people here. I feel like someone's got the CEO of UPS's phone number and could be
Probably.
like,
I wonder if anyone's having such a bad day that he just rolls up like bumping, and they're like, "I'm going in with him.
yeah.
I'm going his route." Like,
Right,
I'm
because
done.
it's always open.
Yeah, that's what I
Right?
mean. Like they just hop in, like I'm.
And
having
I'm
a
always
party.
like, did he put aftermarket speakers in? Like, this can't be standard issue UPS.
It's impressive. Every time I hear it, I smile and I laugh.
I know, it brings joy.
It does.
He does. Yeah.
So whoever you are, UPS driver, we thank
God
you.
bless you. We love
We
you.
thank you.
Well, a driver. This is 8:39 in the morning on
Uh-oh.
Saturday. A driver reported being passed at 90 miles an hour on Highway 29 by a Subaru that then slammed on its brakes and slowed down to 40 miles per hour. Then the driver of the Subaru called 911 saying he's being chased by the first caller. Police contacted both drivers and counseled them in regards to their reckless driving.
Wow. That was intense.
Wow.
So do you think the first guy passed him and then the second guy sped up to probably
For
get
sure.
his plate?
Yeah.
So then he's like brake checking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he's like, I'm being
And
followed.
then they're both calling. Yeah, and they both have to be put in timeout.
Does it mean, do you
It
think
doesn't.
they,
The cops are like, it doesn't matter who started it.
do you think
I'm
they
ending
pulled
it.
them over at the first together? Like, do
Right.
you think they got two police cars and like
Yeah.
got them both
They
over?
told them, go to your vineyard.
and then they had
Go
to
home.
hug at
Yeah.
the end of it.
I don't think so, but maybe.
Well, COVID, I guess.
I'm
they can't
always
touch each other.
fascinated by the stuff that they specify. You know,
We talk about that all the time. The details.
The adjectives.
Yeah, like we know we have one Subaru involved. What's the other car? Someone just decided to be derogatory about Subarus, and then that's it.
That's it.
We could just assume the other one is an Audi Q5.
It's not me. It's not me. I promise. It's not me. It was not me and Dorinda. Okay. At
my
8 a.m. on a
God.
Saturday, we were probably still.
Still sleeping.
Well, we were probably awake, laying there with Wallace in bed, just
Oh, God.
watching some crime documentary.
Of course. Research for the podcast.
Of course,
Yeah.
always.
All right, this may be the coup de grace of the whole podcast tonight. This came from the Corey unofficial
The
Napa
unofficial
Valley.
Napa Valley crime.
Yeah. Who wants to
Facebook
read?
page.
It's about.
I think
sheep.
you should do it.
Should I read it?
I think this is your
Okay.
favorite.
I'm
I
pretty.
know you're
yeah.
pretty. You sent this to me as it was happening.
Yeah.
I do remember this
Live
in
updates.
February.
Live updates. Okay, everybody, here we go. This is a traffic alert, animal hazard. About 300 sheep and their herding dogs are loose in St. Helena. They are currently in a vineyard on Deer Park Road between 29 and Silver Isle Trail, but have been wandering the road at all times. No one knows who they belong to. CHP and Animal Control are dealing with them and trying to locate the responsible party or where they came from. Please use caution if traveling through the area. Okay.
But the best part of this
Hit a hill.
is, so with this post, we have like the CHP incident, the actual update coming from California Highway Patrol. There's a lot of acronyms on here I don't understand. But the part I do understand is dog out with the sheep, negative shepherd in sight. Do you know how close I was to finding like a little Bo Peep outfit and just running out there with my staff like, now's my time?
It's very biblical. You know?
Yes.
People are like, is this a metaphor?
Oh my God.
I mean, I do see the sheep
Wow,
often.
2020, there's no shepherd in sight. It makes so much sense.
So bad.
We're looking.
Sorry.
No. No.
This legitimate question, all those sheep in the vineyards that we see frolicking around, do they really all have like a shepherd? Or do they just kind of like shuffle them in and then fence them? Like, I have a bunch of questions on the sheep.
The woolly weeders is what they're called. You can rent them. Woolly weeders.
Where do they come from?
I don't know.
Sheepville.
So a goat and a sheep love each other. Anyway, but you can rent these woolly weeders, and approximately up to 300 in one setting,
Can
and
you
you
just
can
get
turn
like
them loose.
one? Like if I wanted just one
I don't
for my
think
backyard.
I don't think the economy of scale will work there, Hillary.
Wally needs a friend. I'm just asking.
What's your hourly on one
Can I just
sheep?
get a 12-hour sheep rental?
Do you think that would help in the vineyard, though?
What?
If you wanted to be, in a dry farmed head trained vineyard, you could have sheep there instead of spraying or I guess hoe plowing. Yeah.
Are you asking
They
if I
mow?
legitimately
Yeah.
think they
And
help?
they mow and they fertilize.
Yeah, perfect.
No, I'm all for the sheep.
Yeah.
I think they're cute. I pull
They're
over every time I
self-starters.
see them.
Yeah.
They're motivated.
How do you become a sheep herder
I'll leave it
or
up to you.
shepherd?
Yeah, I would use shepherd on my
Shepherd.
Facebook profile. I'll tell her my business card. Shepherd.
I am the shepherd. But
Wooden
like
staff.
how,
So-
is there like an education class I can take for that? Like how does one become
I'm
a
sure you'll
shepherd?
find it if there is one.
Does it come with the outfit? Like I'm picturing like Toy Story's like her whole bonnet and all.
And then the whole goal is to not do what that one did.
Exactly.
Like
That's
keep
why
your
he ran
sheep off
away.
the highway.
Yeah.
That's literally all you got to do.
You had one job.
You had one job. Put the fence up.
Have you seen any in your vineyards that you source from?
No sheep. Some of my clients for sure.
Our sheep.
Some of my clients. Yeah. Actually.
Edit that out.
Yeah.
What are your favorite vineyards as far as the aspects of each one impart to the wine?
I gotta say, I do have a sweet spot for Toffinelli because of the fact that it's head trained and dry farmed. And my other favorite thing is Vince. Francois has pointed this out to me, where we were talking about, Toffinelli is the symbol of Old Napa. The new Girard winery that is next door to it is like such a symbol of New Napa.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a Costco that they make wine at.
Yeah.
And what I love about Vince is she goes, Vince has a wine label. He makes wine. He's a self-taught winemaker. And Francois said to me, who else do you know of in the Napa Valley that owns their vineyard, farms it entirely themselves, and makes the wine entirely themselves?
That's a good point.
And you're just sort of like, oh, well, and like you can do two of the three, but all three you can't really think of. And I love that Vince, I always joke, he'll use the Royal We he'll be like, "Oh, you should come by. We are pruning this week, and it's Vince with shears, like going through the vineyard and pruning it."
Nice.
You know, like he's got a couple guys who come out during harvest. Otherwise, it's him.
Yeah.
And he has great stories about, you know, he's been farming that place organically since the 80s. And he went to a farming conference in San Francisco. And the speaker said, okay, you know, there are 150 people in the room. Anyone who's farming organically, raise their hand. And Vince is the only person who raises his hand. And the guy says, and that's why organic farming will never catch on. And it's just like, I think it was so cool that sort of like John Williams at Frogs Leap, his mentality was, if it wasn't broke, don't fix it, you know? So it's hard to find that kind of stuff now.
So, interesting topic about that, I mean, Napa's got a few cool small projects like you're doing, but there's also a lot of big influence and big corporations and kind of coming in. So how do you see Napa moving along in the future, you know, with respect to this consolidation and the small people trying to make it too?
And the sheep.
And the sheep.
Well, I had a friend who works in the vineyard as a vineyard manager, and she was saying, you know, it was her first job and she was a couple of years into it. And she said, when I got out of college, I never cared about money. I was never interested in money. You know, I just wanted to make wine and wanted to grow grapes, that kind of thing. And she was like, Mount Veeder is very special to me. And, you know, I just one day wanted to have a vineyard on Mount Veeder and grow grapes and make wine. And she said, I got here to Napa and I realized I have to care about money. Like there is no, that kind of dream of a winemaker starting and then, you know, learning, being an intern, making wine for someone else, and then getting enough money to buy a vineyard, start your own thing. That's disappearing. You know, you can't really do that anymore.
You can't even buy a condo.
No, you can't. You know, that was kind of the one thing that I thought was a fun opportunity with Charbonneau. Is I remember saying to Benoit earlier, you know, if you want to come into the Napa Valley and make the best Cabernet, you either need really lucky genetics or a couple $1 billion.
Yep.
But if we were going to come in and try to make the best Charbonneau, that felt doable. Like we could push that needle, you know.
Space that no one really is in.
No one was occupying that space, right?
Like our podcast.
Just like our podcast. It's also because no one wants to.
First off, I just want to say I did reject all the offers from the other police log-based podcasts before I came on it.
Thank you for sticking with us.
Yeah.
We're returning kind with all the Charbonneau producers, but there are other people that do Charbonneau. So
yeah,
you said Roy Williams.
There are almost dozens of us.
Yeah.
There's like 12 or 13 of us.
That's incredible.
Rory Williams at Calder. Vince has Toffanelli, Shy Poke. Let's see, August Briggs makes the Charbonneau.
Yep.
Ridge just started making a Charbonneau.
Wow.
I found out today Relic is making Charbonneau from Frediani. But most other people, there was Summers, which just got purchased by Brasswood, but they're keeping it in the ground, which is great. They're gonna make Charbonneau. But the other folks just tend to use it as a blender.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Charbonneau, the grape. It's like a heritage.
Yeah, so it came from the Savoie region, and Italian immigrants brought it over. And what's interesting is the somm at Rustic Canyon in LA, Ferdy, he told me he considers it one of the greatest. He said something like, you know, I think it's like one of the greatest American varieties. And I was like, well, wait, why? Even me, you know, I love Charbonneau, but I'm like, this is the great American wine? I don't get it. And he said, well, okay, look, yeah, we grow Cab here, but there are plenty of people who are going to say there's stuff in Bordeaux that's better or as good, right? And you can say it's the same thing about Pinot, right? But he said Charbonneau doesn't exist anymore in the region that it came from. And then the other places, Mendocino, they grow some, but it's too cold there.
Right.
Argentina, it's the second most planted variety, but it goes into like jug lines. It just grows very differently there. And his argument was, no one is making it as well as we are here. And I thought that was a really interesting way to frame it, because all the other grapes that you think of as being kind of Napa or Sonoma grapes or California, there's another region somewhere making wines of the same caliber. And with Charbonneau, you can't say that. It's just Napa that has this quality of Charbonneau.
Yeah.
But it as a grape is really interesting. Huge clusters, big berries, thin-skinned. It is extremely dark in color. It's very tannic. Apparently, Inglenook's back in the day, everyone said they would just like strip your teeth. Like you just couldn't drink them. But then what's great about that is they age phenomenally well because the color and the tannin are both antioxidants. And so I opened up a 68 from Inglenook at Charter Oak once that I picked up for $80 on WineBid, and I took it around to the somms, the chefs, the bartenders, and I said, "Okay, how old is this?" Because again, normally if you're drinking Old California, you kind of know you're drinking Old California, and no one guessed older than 85.
Wow.
And so it will hang in there.
It's got great structure and it just kind of sticks
super structure. Yeah. So that's been kind of the big thing with it, is you can't treat it like cab. I think that back in the day when people thought of it as a rustic variety, it's because if you do a super extended maceration with this, it's going to be undrinkably tannic. Right. So tannin management is really important. Right. And that's been kind of a focus of what we've been doing. It's like, how can we get the extraction, and the tannin's all there, but it's kind of smoother tannin,
So yeah, I'm on the Shipe Oak right now, and I mean, it's great drinking, and it's 18.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal. So like, how do you manage that tannin, and what's your barrel?
So we had a little different treatments going from Benoit to Francoise. Benoit was much more about extraction. Francoise is getting some of that tannin back in there. We do open top puncheons, and again, it's relatively short ferments. We're not letting it sit on the skins for a long period of time, because once you do that, then the seed tannins are getting involved, and it gets pretty harsh. And the Toffanelli, 15 Toffanelli, Benoit said was the most tannic wine he had ever made. But then I would open it for people and they go, "Oh, this is really nice. It's not tannic." But, if you showed them a lab report, it's about as tannic as it gets. But it's just like, it was good, sort of silky tannin, and had enough fruit in there that hides it. So a lot of it is just the site. And then with the Shipe Oak, we do a little co-ferment with Malbec. And that Charbonneau in general can have this little dip in the mid-palate. It can be a little scooped. And so we had experimented with Petit Syrah, but you add like 5% Petit, and then it just smells like Petit. And especially Shipe Oak has these kind of trademark floral aromatics that are really nice. And the Malbec, we do it as a co-ferment, and it just kind of sits in that pocket and fleshes it out a bit, but doesn't really change it, which is nice. So that's been kind of the key to that wine. And the Toffanelli, we just don't touch it. Like, Francoise doesn't even bring it to blend sessions. It just goes straight from the barrel to the bottle.
That's so cool. And it's like the most authentic Napa Valley
you
can get. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. And you're a Charbonneau. Would you consider yourself a Charbonneau influencer? You have the hat. It says Charbonneau.
I have the hat. Yeah. So I'm leading the wave of Charbonneau influencing, which is now like, it's definitely picking up steam. We had a tasting in LA at Rustic Canyon, and Spidey was there. Spencer Pratt and Heidi, I forget her last name, from the Hills.
Oh, I definitely know who that is.
They are Charbonneau influencers. They're part of the Charbonneau gang. So For all the chic people out there, they know what they're drinking.
That's awesome.
I mean, they're really drinking orange wine, but like, they definitely. I did get like such a kick out of just the fact of Charbonneau being an influencing wine, because it's so not. It's so not like
Back to authenticity, though.
Yeah.
That's what's cool about it.
Yeah.
And people want that.
It's
'cause they're
not
so
cool. That's why it's cool. It is not
It's just-
trying to be cool.
It's just
at
That's
all.
why it's cool.
That's why it's,
Yeah.
that's why it's hip and cool. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And there's how many acres in Napa?
They say there's like 40 acres in Napa
40 acres.
of the 65 that exist.
Wow.
Yeah.
Period. In the United States.
In the United States, yeah. Yeah, and putting that in comparison, there are, I think, 88,000 acres of Cabernet in the state, like 90,000 acres of Chardonnay. And so there's just a couple little drops of Charbonneau.
That's cool.
And so the idea of what we're trying to do is, as I said before, Napa is all about money. And as these vineyards trade hands with new generations, like you see it going away. And so the idea was, what we needed to do was change the perception of the variety.
Mm-hmm.
And how we do that is, give it the same love and care that you would high in cab. So then it becomes an alternative for cab drinkers who are a little bored. And then charge what you would need to charge for the farmers to be able to afford to have it planted in the ground.
Keep it.
That's the idea. Is it's a rising tide situation.
Yeah.
Like we were taking a risk that the people who make their livelihood on Charbonneau could not take. You can't double the price of Charbonneau overnight, and with your audience, expect them to still buy the wine. And so our goal was that we were not going after Charbonneau drinkers. We're not preaching to the choir. We're going after Cabernet drinkers. So even though this is an expensive Charbonneau, it might be twice the price of your average Charbonneau, but it is half the price of your average Cabernet made in a similar manner. Mm-hmm. And so that was the goal. And then to have high-end placements in terms of restaurants, it's great for somms because they have a story to tell. They have something to actually say.
And just that limited quantity, like that's cool in itself. Like,
Yeah.
there's 40 acres of this. Like,
Right.
you ain't getting much.
40 acres of this, a couple of cases of this. We're not really doing much outside of the Napa Valley. That was something I thought was interesting coming here to visit, is you have this idea of like, I just think it's so interesting when people come to Napa and they drink the wines that they drink at home. And it's because it's hard. It's genuinely hard to find wines in Napa that you can't drink anywhere in this country. Mm-hmm. And so to have something that was small, that pretty much stayed within Napa and kind of the Bay Area, was something that I thought, for me, just as a wine drinker and consumer, that's the experience I would want. To come to a restaurant or a retailer and say, what can I drink here that I can't get at home? And they have something to point to instead of like, oh, you just go to this wine shop and you'll be able to get it.
Right.
I love that.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I think it's awesome you're doing it. And she's definitely lucky to have you here tonight to show them all. Hillary, you're looking longingly at the police log.
I get excited, okay?
She's
I
pumped
love
up.
the wine,
Hillary's got
but-
something on her mind right now, and
Right.
I'm not sure which one it is. It looks like Monday, January 18th.
No, it's Sunday, January 17th.
Ooh.
Firefighters responded to a report of a residential fire that may have been out already on Arrowhead Drive. The fire was reportedly started in the dishwasher. How does a dishwasher catch on fire? There's water and scents in there.
Or they were trying to put out a fire using the dishwasher.
Oh.
Something's on
Okay.
fire, just throw it in there, close the door, press start.
Details
Okay.
we won't know about.
Yeah,
because the
starve
fire-
it of oxygen and hit it with water.
Boom, he's got the fire triangle already figured out.
Is that what you
Are you
guys-
looking to be a volunteer anywhere? The Brunswick
Yeah,
Fire
yeah.
Department's hiring.
Yeah. A volunteer firefighter keeps putting stuff in my dishwasher. He keeps screaming about the triangle of fire.
Is that really like on a PowerPoint you guys watch?
Yeah, the fire. You ever heard of the fire triangle?
No.
No.
Oh God.
No.
Oh jeez.
This is why there are fires here every
Fuel,
year. None of us know the triangle.
fuel, air, and spark. Take one away.
Okay.
Oh man, God,
Oh.
my fire service management degrees finally of use.
Yeah.
You really?
How
have-
about don't know what I'm talking about. Yes, I do have a degree in emergency management, which served me well in the Army because every day is a disaster.
I also feel like the fire triangle works with relationships.
Oh my
Oh my god!
This is
Like
getting
you
deep.
need fuel, air, and spark.
Yeah.
You take one away, it's gonna kill it.
Should we create the 911 dating
This
app
is-
now?
Yeah,
or?
this is I think
Wow.
yeah.
You have like 3 ways to swipe.
Yeah, and you're like, I'm glad everything's safe. We put the fire, but ma'am, just a suggestion. I know you don't want this in your kitchen, but you might want to add some spark back in the bedroom. I'm here to help. I'm just a volunteer. I'm not a hero. But
Think of
just
Okay, think of the swag we could get for this though. And
Maybe consider rebranding.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I've never been more excited.
Yeah, you got to work the triangle.
Can't wait for Goose and Anns to be back so we can see the triangle in action.
Yeah.
Taken out of context, this is really bad. Sunday,
there's-
January 31st, 9:20 in the morning. Police received a complaint about softball teams playing without masks and social distancing on Grayson Avenue at the high school, no doubt.
At 6:18 p.m. on a Wednesday, a report of an apparently drunk person stumbling around Maine Charter Oak. Do we want to guess?
That was not me. That was not me.
Phantom came out.
Speaking-
First off, I don't stumble. I just fall asleep where I'm sitting.
Speaking of Charter Oak,
Yeah.
do we want to dive into what we had for dinner?
Yeah, good
for
call.
the
Yes.
prep? Because we mentioned that, you're a big, Charter Oak influencer.
Yes.
Big fan.
So,
Yeah.
And they're fans of you, no doubt.
Well,
they haven't turned it away yet.
yeah. They just don't want me to walk across the street to Farmstead.
Okay.
They're happy. They're happy that I'm there.
Okay. And you're not stumbling. So.
I'm not. No.
So we had burgers and the farm veggies.
They were
Salad.
scrumptious, per usual.
Amazing, as always.
Yeah.
Still waiting.
That's all I had to.
Still waiting for our first sponsor for 911 Wine. So, if Charter Oak, if you're interested, call Hillary. She does all the work
Yeah,
for this.
burgers should be here. Burgers should fuel. That should be the fuel.
That's the fuel
of
of
the
the fire
triangle.
We're gonna make T-shirts, and there's gonna be a little burger. And
Yeah.
what are the other?
Spark,
Spark.
and air.
The spark is just our faces because we bring the charisma.
Yeah,
and
the spark is you
excitement.
two, and the oxygen is the material.
And the log.
It's
We
the
get a
log.
little picture of the log.
Yeah.
Oh my
I know
God.
I'm getting it for your birthday.
Oh God,
Yeah.
help us. Hillary's at it again. Thank God we don't have a combined 911 Wine credit card.
We do. You just don't know
Oh,
yet.
Lord Almighty.
Remember
No.
that day I asked for your social?
There are 2,400 hats coming.
But they have matching fanny packs, so
Speaking
don't
of which,
worry.
we probably owe him a hat.
Yeah, we'll
definitely
put them in the
owe him a hat.
mailbox of every house in St. Louis.
Oh, just wait till you see the things I ordered this week.
So how do we? How does one get a hold? First of all, how many cases do you make of the different varieties?
Not much. When we started, it was literally 35 cases of wine. Now we're maybe 200, 250. The Heritage Blend is usually around 75 cases or more. The other two single vineyards have been about 50 cases of each.
Cool.
We've been making a little bit more Toffanelli recently. And then we've got a rosé.
Charbonita.
Charbonita.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Very
that-
cool.
That,
Oh, I
that was
like that.
yeah. Francois came up with that.
Who did
name.
the artwork on that? Because it's really cool.
Anna Bond, who does
No
Rifle
way.
Paper Company.
Cool.
I met her when I lived in Florida for a year and a half, and she had just started Rifle Paper Company. She did my business card, and forever I just thought she would do a dynamite wine
Yeah.
label, and I was always thinking about it for other people. But then when we made a rosé, what was funny is that I guess it was we didn't make a rosé before because we didn't have any kind of Saunier, we didn't have any bleed, right? And then we were making enough wine that we had some Saunier, and we made like a barrel of it.
Yeah.
And it was just going to be for us. It was going to be like picnic wine.
Yeah.
And then it looked sad, just being in this like Shiner bottle. But then that was the other thing is like the packaging we have now, we have these little like short pirate bottles that are very like dark in color, and the labels are black and white, and it's kind of like intensely kind of modern and masculine, and
Very
that's
moody.
not not rosé.
Yeah.
And so I asked her, I said, could you make a label, and then I'll send you a bunch of rosé. And then she made a label, and the label was so good. I said to Francoise, I said, we can't put it on this. Like, we need to make better rosé. Like, if we're going to do this, like, we need to
gotta
do
commit.
this.
Cool. Yeah.
So we did exactly that. We didn't put it on that first vintage of doing it, and the second year did early pick direct press rosé with Peter at Shy Poke, and it was perfect. Then we had like solid rosé, and we did a tiny amount last year. And what was so funny was I was like, oh, we're not going to release it. It'll be for dinners and tastings and all these things. And of course, like COVID happens. And so I ended up just sending it to friends kind of early in quarantine when everyone was kind of hitting a wall a little bit, like a month into it, getting a little depressed. And so I just gave it all away. Like, I have one bottle left of that first vintage.
Wow.
And then we made 50 cases of it this year because of the fact that people were really into it. But yeah, it is, again, like such an old school Napa project because I just hand labeled all 600 bottles of it like the other week,
Dude, amazing. So how do people, are you all allocated out? How do people get it?
You can go on mattmorriswines.com.
Cool.
And it's available there.
Are you sold out of everything? You're on the 18s now?
18s were just released.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's available.
So now's the time.
Now's the time.
Get on it.
Yeah, Acme and a couple other folks have it, but otherwise now's the time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
I
fun,
know.
man.
This
I'm
was
so
fun.
glad you kept DMing us to get on here.
We're glad we could squeeze you into our busy
I was
schedule.
hoping I had enough pull to get on that like top requests on Instagram. There's like the all
the
requests
general
and
and then the top.
Yeah, top.
Yep, sure do.
I'm trying to get my followers up. So everyone, please follow, like,
Yes.
and
What is it?
subscribe.
At Matt Morris
At Matt
Wines.
Well, we'll do it at Matt Morris Films. My personal brand is more important to me, obviously. People are curious what I'm eating for brunch. They want to know what sunsets I'm seeing. So that's all available to you. Just please help me get to the point where I can swipe up for link. That's all I really care about.
10,000.
That's
all I
all I care
10,000.
about.
And there's some really cool old car videos and pictures on there.
There-
too.
yeah,
There's some really
it's-
cool, authentic, like
It's
old stuff.
It's my all of my things that I love that I wear on my sleeve. So yeah, it's food and cars and sunsets.
Hey, what more do you want?
Well, cheers. Yay.
Thanks,
Cheers,
you.
guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening in on this episode of 91 Wine. Make sure to follow us on 91 Wine Podcast on Instagram. Make Hillary's dreams come true. Get us over 1,000 followers on Instagram.
It's 10,000 for the swipe up. Chris, we've already surpassed 1,000, but I like that you're taking it day by day.
Day by day, make Hillary's dreams come true.
Download us on all streaming platforms, and we will see you guys next month.
See ya.
2243, you enjoy your evening and be safe.